Hello, welcome back, and I hope you're ready now to move into the design thinking process and really beginning with unpacking empathy. So, trying to understand what it is exactly that you learned through the empathy work that you did. And this is really moving us from the first stage into the second stage of the design thinking process. So that's your empathy done now on the topic of litter. And you might just take a few moments now yourself, and I know you did this a little bit in your group discussions, just to reflect on the process of empathy, how you found it going out and about and trying to learn as much as you could about litter. And I'm guessing there were things that maybe were more challenging or less challenging. Maybe there were things in the empathy process that you enjoyed doing. Maybe there were things that you enjoyed doing a little bit less. But I think there's a lot of learning. There's a lot of richness really in reflecting on how you engaged in that process, I guess, first on litter, and then when you moved into conducting empathy on your own problem area for the idea that you've come into the Ideas Academy with. And a lot of times, as we dive into empathy and really the deep dive into understanding needs, I'm trying to engage with people. You're getting bits of information from here and from your interviews and from observations and from research. And sometimes it's hard to really know what exactly it is even that you've learned. And we call this the design squiggle. It's perfectly normal. And one thing that we would say is to trust the process, trust the design thinking process, that if you go through it, you will ultimately end in some kind of clarity, although it might not feel like it right now. Albert Einstein said, if I had an hour to solve a problem, I'd spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem and 5 minutes thinking about solutions. And really, I think it is just to underscore the importance of empathy, of not just jumping to solutions, but really trying to get that rich amount of information in relation to your problem area. So this is what you've done. And again, just one more reminder of where we are in the process. And we're moving now into the define stage. And sometimes we call this the sense making stage. You're trying to make sense out of everything that you learned in empathy. And there are a few elements to this define stage. And we'll be going through them in the next couple of videos. And it's all about really making your data, the information that you've gathered, visible and visual, somehow organizing that data, trying to identify patterns and trends in what you've learned, and really aiming to uncover interesting insights, the aha moments, that thing where you're like, oh, wow, I didn't really think about that before. I hadn't realized that. And overall, at the end of this define stage, you'll be generating a problem statement, which is also sometimes called a point of view statement. It's your point of view as to the need that you're identifying, the problem that you think really needs to be solved. And sometimes, when we look at design and we think that we know the right answer, what the user actually needs is something a little bit different. A lot of times our user will somehow indicate to us or show us what it is that they actually need, which isn't always what we plan on. So this define stage often involves Post-it notes, lots and lots of Post-it notes. You might have some around the house. And this first part of define, we call it download and share. So you're thinking about what information have you gained, and you put this onto Post-it notes. And we say one bit of information or key insight per Post-it note. And this is what I mean by that it's a few words, kind of a snapshot bit of information or fact figure per Post-it note, that you're not trying to transcribe a whole entire interview onto one teeny tiny little Post-it note. One key bit of information or fact or insight per Post-it note. If you haven't got any Post-it notes around the house, you might like to use an online whiteboard. Mural.co is a great one. I use it a lot myself. It has Post-it notes. You can move things around, drag and drop things. And it's a really helpful tool to use in design thinking, although, again, some people do prefer the physical Post-it notes. So when I talk about one bit of information, one key insight per Post-it note, this is what I mean. So if we had a group, and this is a challenge I did with some undergrads recently, they were looking at biodiversity on UCD's campus. Instead of just putting the word frogs, onto a Post-it note instead of just the word frogs. Instead, it's a little bit better. So this meaningful bit of information. Frog population has declined by 20% in the last 3 years. So it's that key insight, key bit of information. Instead of kinds of trees, instead you might have a little quote from an interview that you did. I wish I knew what species the trees are. So this is somebody who had gone out and interviewed people, and somebody responded that I wish I knew what species the trees are. Again, you might have a Post-it note instead of kinds of trees, something key insight, key bit of fact or takeaway from empathy, that there's a lack of awareness of tree species, lack of awareness of tree species. So hopefully you can see the difference between sort of the broad general little note put onto a Post-it note and the bit of information, key information or insight that you got from empathy. And once you've got all of your information, so everything that you learned about litter through your observations, your interviews, your research, maybe the body storming in relation to litter, got that down onto Post-it notes. We call it saturating your space with data. So this means you've got all of your Post-it notes written down, you get them up on a bit of wall space somewhere and put all of your Post-it notes up, and you can see in the photo, that's exactly what's going on there. Loads and loads of Post-it notes, some photos even up onto a wall. So you've gotten all of your litter, bits of information from empathy on litter, down onto Post-it notes. You've got them up onto a wall. The next step is something called affinity mapping. And this is where you look for patterns, themes, connections in the different bits of information you've got on all of your Post-it notes. And you can move them around and put them into clusters where here's a theme, here's a similar bit of information, here's something similar. I learned this from an interview and this from research, and it all kind of relates to litter in the same way. And you'd end up then with several, if not more, clusters. The next step then is to headline each of those clusters. So to give each of them a name to help you identify what that connecting theme is. What is it that that cluster, that group of Post-it notes has in common? This isn't an exact science, so there's certainly not one correct way to do it with whatever you've got on all of your Post-it notes. So you can play around with it a little bit. So again, the define stage is about making your data visible and visual, and that you're organizing it in some way, identifying patterns and trends. That's that kind of cluster and headline. Throughout that you're really trying to uncover and bring to the front, bring to the fore the interesting insights that you've got in the aha moments through which then you'll generate a problem statement. I think this is a nice summary really of what this design thinking stage of define really is all about. That you space saturate to help you unpack thoughts and experiences into tangible and visible pieces of information that you surround yourself with to inform and inspire you and or your design team. You group these findings to explore what themes and patterns emerge and strive to move forward towards identifying meaningful needs of people and insights that will inform your problem statement, your point of view statement. So your task, and this is going to be the first part of this define stage, is to transfer your information, your insights about litter, everything that you learned about litter, onto Post-it notes. And this will involve lots and lots of Post-it notes. And again, you can use real ones or a virtual platform like Mural. Put the Post-it notes onto a wall. So you download it onto Post-it notes, get them up onto a wall, move the Post-it notes around, putting them into groups where there are similar bits of information, or if they fit into a theme of some sort, and then give each of those groups, each of those clusters a headline. So you can easily identify what that theme area is all about. So this might take you a little while, depending on how much you actually got to do with your empathy on litter, but I hope you enjoy it. And again, this is the transition really from the empathy, the understanding, the observations, the interviews, the body storming, the research, transitioning from that to the design squiggle into a little bit more focus, which we'll do more of then in the second video.